Welcome to the Rocksolid Families podcast. I am Linda Hutchinson here with my really kind of
comforting husband. I'm comforting you through a time of stress.
You
my
are
dear.
you are in a very interesting mood today.
I didn't get to work out yet. I got the crazies are still
The
in me.
crazies. We are recording on a different day now because of our new schedule with our new office, and so it's a little earlier.
I'm out of sync, guys. I'm out of sync.
And so, you brought the word comfort up. We're talking about comfort today and the emotional comfort that we can give to our children as parents, or caregivers, teachers, therapists, whatever, and how important that is. So please stay tuned because it really will be an interesting topic for you to even think about, like how you were comforted as a child and if you can remember being comforted. So we're going to be talking about that.
And the long-term benefit to the overall emotional health of your kid,
Yes.
right? So, and again, I wanted to be cautious when we did this because I think you and I talked about the pendulum swinging both ways, like over-coddling our
Yes.
kids, right? And creating comfort in every strong environment. And that's not what we're talking about, but it is a matter of knowing when to jump on an island of comfort so that you can go back out into the choppy waters of life, right? So back and forth. So anyway, this is going to be a good topic.
Yeah. But before we go on, we want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Maxwell Construction, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and the Hoosier Ice House for their support of the Rocksolid Families podcast and Rocksolid Families. And so if you do not know who we are a faith-based organization located in Southeast Indiana, and would love for you to check us out on rocksolidfamilies.org. You can see a lot of these resources we're talking about, other podcasts we've done, blogs we've written, or make an appointment if you could come in, or by Zoom. We Zoom with clients all over the country.
And that reminds me that we also have our Families Rock Intensive Training down at the Tate Street Firehouse down in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. That's on May 24th. That goes from 8:30 to noon. And so that has been a great program for our parents. They can kind of, it's nice actually when it's kind of a gloomy, rainy Saturday. So those guys can go, good, I'm not missing out on anything. And they can come in. And,
I think the teacher's saying that.
Yeah. And so anyways, the guys, that's a really good program, good material, and people always walk away from that going, okay, I got some things I can actually use.
I actually had a parent reach out to me just recently asking what's better. They need parenting help. Is it better to take the class, or is it better to come on one-on-one? I mean, obviously, Families Rock, that is a great bang for your buck because it is 3 really sessions into one, and it's less than one cost of one session. And the goal is to kind of disseminate the information and that everybody is hearing it. And I kind of said, no matter what, to get the dad and the mom on the same page. So whether it be coming in together or whether it be going to this class together, really it's about a united front and both of you rowing in the same direction.
Yeah. So, but if you had a specific problem or situation going with your kid, it's not a personal counseling session. So we won't, you don't have the time actually to go into too much personal situation.
Right.
So
one of the greatest parenting resources on our office shelves, and we give away a lot of free resources, comes from the co-authors and the family therapists of Mylan and Kay Yurkovich. They are a couple, and their book that they've written is called How We Love Our Kids. And the subtitle says, "One small change in you, one big change in your kids." And so in the book, the Yurkoviches talk about that every child, no matter their age, needs to feel seen, heard, and held, especially in moments when they have these big emotions, when they're really sad or when they're really mad or when they're really frustrated. And so they really give us a very simple model to go. And we wanted just to spend some time to unpack that model. And I think it's going to be a great tool in parents' toolbox.
Yeah. Guys, the importance of this is knowing that your kids do not understand their emotions, and they don't understand the concept of emotional regulation. And so all of us have emotions, and whether you're angry or frustrated or tired, depressed, whatever, you get these emotions that come up, and those are okay. But sometimes if they take you over and they're prolonged or they lead to behaviors that are destructive, kids can get stuck. Adults can get stuck.
Yeah.
So we talk about emotional regulation. And the only way you can regulate is kind of to put yourself into some calm water, right? And you have to be intentional about that. And so that's what that comfort is about, teaching your kids, okay, hey, now you're in a safe place. Let's calm the water down and let's get to a place where we can actually start to make some changes.
So before we go any further, hon, I kind of want to ask you, do you remember a time, and we're going to ask you, the listener,
Are you putting me on the spot? Are you going to put me on the spot? I feel this coming.
When you were little or younger and you were comforted by your mom and dad, can you remember a time, a situation where something happened and you were overwhelmed or angry or frustrated and sad?
Well, I can always tell you that my mom was always provider of comfort. I mean, even though she would, discipline you and everything, as soon as she saw that you were not in a good place, my mom was never distant. She'd connect to you right away. Hey, come on in here, And so she was always good at that. I mean, you remember my mom. I mean, at the dinner table after dinner, everybody was very comfortable to just sit and talk, and she would hear any conversation that came up.
I had more deep conversations with your mom than my mom.
Yeah, so she was kind of a natural at that. My dad, though, was not. He was not like the guy who made you always feel comfortable. One thing that stands out with my dad is that mom gave a lot of the regular discipline, right? Kids clean up your room, kids do this, kids do that. But when something heavy was going down, dad was the guy who would drop that usually. Okay, usually that would be getting a spanking or something like that. And that's an emotionally hard time, right? You're getting spanked or it's getting brought to you in a strong way. But something that is amazing that I talk about all the time that sometimes parents miss out. We're not against discipline at all. Like, it's essential. But my dad, whether he was trained to do this or not, I'm sure he wasn't, because he wouldn't seek training for these things. But after he disciplined you, you would sit in your room for whatever, 5-10 minutes, and then he would come in later, and he'd put his arm around you, and he would then create like you desired that. Like, Dad, are you going to come in now? Okay. And he would say, hey, listen, here's what happened. We are all good. Are you okay? And he would just provide that comfort. And I mean, to this day, like, when we discipline, we always want to follow up with, hey, you and I are still good. And I think that always allowed us kids to know Dad is on our side. He just had to work in the moment to deliver that discipline. But we never questioned whether Dad, is he still mad at us? Are we okay? Are we walking on eggshells around here? No, once it was over, Dad made sure you were comfortable back in our home. And so that just is big, and I can't stress that enough. Like, you don't hesitate to discipline your kids, but they have to know that they're not wondering if they're in your good graces. Yeah,
but we're hoping that if we can utilize this tool that we're going to give you today, that you can avoid some of those blow up, some of those situations that get needing discipline. And so our goal is to give parents and educators and therapists a practical framework that they can walk away with and have in their hand as a tool.
Okay, wait. So not so quick.
Yeah.
How about you? You put me on the spot. How about you?
I kind of want to share a moment where I wasn't comforted, and it etched in my mind. My dad was the comforter, even though he was 6'4" and he had that big hand, and he would spank, but he was the comforter more than my mom. But this was a moment where I needed my mom. I started my menstrual cycle at the 5th grade. Okay. Ooh. And my mom was in like a junior in high school, so she had no clue.
She wasn't a junior high school when you started.
No. Okay. But that was when she
started hers.
So she had no preparation or awareness that this was going to happen. And so I remember very carefully, very clearly being so overwhelmed by that. No one I knew, and by the way, you didn't talk about that. Nowadays, girls talk about it all the time, but like, you didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
And there was no internet, there was no Googling. And so I was really confused. And my mom, like, literally just kind of ignored it. And when she found out, she kind of just dismissed it. She didn't really talk me through it. She didn't really comfort me in it. And it was really confusing. It was a confusing time for me in the 5th grade when no one of my friends are dealing with it, that my mom, and honestly, I think because, and I'm going to talk about this a little later, my mom was an orphan as a teenager. Her parents died within 6 months of each other. And I don't even know if it was after she started her menstrual cycle or not, but I don't know if she had that comfort. I don't know if she really had that parent there for her. And so it really did. It affected me in a way that I just kind of learned to do it myself, to figure it out myself, to ask friends, like, where do babies come from? Like, I learned that from my neighbor, not my mom. And so those are the things that I felt overwhelmed with and kind of unaware of. And so, but that comfort really could have helped me in the developmental stages.
I can imagine, being a 5th grader, like at the elementary school when I was a counselor there, we were a K through 5 building. And, every year we would have a girl or two that would be, in the 5th grade or so, and they would have their first period there. And it would blow them away, right? Nobody saw that coming.
No.
And our nurse was fantastic with providing that comfort and just say, okay, here's what's going on. And typically she would call the parent in and say, okay, so let's work with this. So I can't imagine, because, in your mind, you're like, am I okay?
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm dying.
Is everything all right? Like, what's going on with my body here? And so, that would be pretty freaky.
Yeah. So why emotional comfort? Why is it so important? Well, as we're talking, it's the power of presence, right? It's about sitting alongside someone, walking alongside them in that big moment, whether it be something in their control or out of their control, and offering them that comfort. And there's a real difference, between controlling the behavior and comforting the emotion. And so if you just focus on powering up and getting the behavior controlled, but not helping the child work through the emotion, then you really cripple them for adulthood. They don't learn how to really self-soothe and cope and understand what's going on inside them. I didn't understand what was going inside of me.
So kind of the difference, guys, that we're talking about there, and again, there's a time and place for everything, so we're not trying to throw one thing completely away, but suck it up, buttercup, there's a time and place for that, but it doesn't provide comfort, right? Sometimes you do have to plow through and get through difficult times, but there's a lot of emotional insecurity going on usually when a kid's being challenged that way. And so just constantly coming to your kids and saying, suck it up, buttercup, push through it, you got this, you're leaving part of them out in the desert. They don't, and so that's kind of what happened with you in your situation. I mean, your mom obviously didn't say that, but she said, well, figure it out. Like, it's no big deal. Everybody goes through this. So there's
dismissed it.
It's dismissed, and so you're just left to harden up or panic out. Whatever, however you're wired.
Yeah. And, more is caught than taught. You've heard that before. So our kids are learning from modeling. And so we can teach our children emotional regulation just by co-regulating. And so by not getting all worked up when they're fired up, to not yelling when they're yelling, to not throwing things when they're throwing things, we have got to model for them what that looks like. And so, my mom has been gone, hun, for over 2 years now. And I remember toward the end of her life, and as I studied more about attachment theory, literally Yurkovich's book, How We Love, is about marriage and family, and How We Love Our Kids is more about parenting. But I remember toward the end of her life, she was battling cancer, and I remember getting the courage, because she did not like to talk about feelings, about her past. She didn't like to talk about her parents and her childhood. And finally, I got the courage to ask her. And I think she was a little bit more vulnerable because she wasn't feeling good, but she shared how harsh and how distant her dad was from her mom, her siblings. And it sounds like either he was a controller or an avoider. I'm not sure, but I don't think she experienced a lot of comfort from her dad. And her mom was kind of a pleaser, so she didn't really wasn't present either, because she was dealing with this controller. So my mom didn't see a healthy model growing up, nor did she know how to comfort me.
Yeah. And part of the point here, guys, is it would be very easy to reflect back and see what your parents did and even potentially get upset with them.
Yeah.
And we are really trying to say, no, that's not the direction that you want to go. I mean, your parents are the way they were and are because of what they came up through. And so you can, if you want to get mad at your mom for how she parented you, you better just keep on going back to her mom and her mom and her mom, because we're all kind of part of that remnant. And so rather than go that direction.
Right. We don't want to be a victim.
Yeah.
Of
Let's talk about how we walk through it, and then how we can help ourselves, but as well as how we do it differently with our kids.
Yeah. So get a pen and paper out, and we're going to give you an acronym that we don't claim to have created. This is from How We Love Our Kids by Mylin and Kay Yurkovich, and it's the word MATS. So if you could go MATS down the page, MATS, this is a framework, a 4-step response when kids are overwhelmed or upset or dysregulated, is kind of the therapeutic term. And so we want to give you this really simple model to use, and I've seen it effective. We just did this the other day with our granddaughter in the camper. She was not she was not very happy, and so to do this is really helping to kind of bring the temperature down. So M.
Yeah. So the first thing, guys, is notice or mention what you see. Mention the emotion that you see. So a lot of times when we are overwhelmed ourselves, or we just don't want to deal with it, we see our kid frustrated or whatever, and we just go, well, I hope they get over this. And that just leaves them stuck on the desert, out on the desert here. Instead, just to point it out, to say, man, you look really upset right now, or you look frustrated, just to point it out. Now, I will tell you, that doesn't mean the kid will say, yes, you're exactly right. Okay. And I will tell you, like with boys, I might get nothing out of that. I might get, with a teenage boy, I might get, okay, because they don't really always know the vocabulary, and they might be going, I really don't even want to talk about this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, but you just mentioning that you get them, you understand them, mention the emotion that you see.
So I had this recently with a couple, and we were working through kind of naming your emotion. And he was classic. He said his day was fine, right? Yep. And when I asked him to give me some more feeling words, he even said, it makes me feel anxious.
To say feeling words.
Yes, to name them. And so what was really cool is that he kind of started talking about his day, and his wife said, it sounded like you were frustrated and you were tired and you were feeling overwhelmed. And so it was really kind of cool, because what it did is the avoider, who doesn't really have the words, you can kind of fill in the gap and mention, like, it sounds like, or it looks like you're tired or you're frustrated. And then that kind of helps them name it. It helps them put vocabulary to maybe what's going on. And if they're totally off base, then they can say, no, I really had a good day. Yeah. They can kind of clarify and kind of reorganize their thoughts about it. But sometimes their face and their body language says one thing.
Well, that's why I do want to interject here. There are some people you can ask them how their day was, or how they're doing, or how they're feeling, and you'll get right to the core of what they're feeling. Okay.
They'll word vomit you.
Yeah. And then that's good. You asked, right? So here you go. But I would say, in the work that I do with men, like I've learned a long time ago, you don't ask men how they're doing. You don't ask boys how they're doing, because they're going to say, fine. So you have to kind of sit in space with them for a while. And so mom and dad, like, this is where you just do some regular conversation. What'd you do at school today? How's baseball practice going? And you're just using some different conversation that it's not pressing them, but you're taking the time to read them. Because if they're talking about baseball practice, but they've had a bad day, you'll get the tone of how they're talking about baseball practice. You'll get the tone of their day through that discussion. And as they're talking about baseball practice, you'll be like, man, you seem kind of tired today, or you seem kind of frustrated today.
So you're mentioning it, right?
You're then mentioning it, but you can't just go with so many of these kids, guys, you can't go right at how are you doing? Because you're going to get, typically, in my world, you're going to get some one-word answers.
Especially avoiders.
I had it already today, right? And so it's like I had to kind of milk it and read it and just bring it back. Man, you seem really frustrated today.
Yeah.
Right.
So use a calm voice, avoid judgment, okay? Avoid saying, oh, you shouldn't feel this way, okay? Just kind of mention what you're observing, right? And name it for them and get clarity. And then that's the M. So mention what you see. The second one is ask more and validate their feelings.
So this is the A.
This is the A, yeah. So ask some questions. I always say to couples, get curious, not furious. Like, wow, you really sound very upset with me right now. What's going on? Okay. And so can you tell me a little bit more about why you're upset, or what you're frustrated about? And then when you hear that, for instance, I'm feeling overwhelmed because I have so many things on my plate today. Okay. Well, I can see where that would overwhelm you. Okay. You're validating it. And that's really helping them feel heard, right? That you're really hearing me, you're listening to me, and really avoid that overwhelming, like it's not a big deal, or dismissing it, okay? Or you're overreacting. Like that's not helpful.
Yeah. By the way, validating it is not saying you agree with how the behavior they're exhibiting. What you're saying is, I get it. I understand why you would do that. And so the validation helps them to realize they're not crazy, they're not dumb, they're not stupid. You can say, I can see why you would be mad at your teacher with that. Okay, you didn't agree. You just said, I can understand it. And right away, they're like, okay, somebody gets me.
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest misnomers of gender identity and gender confusion is that if we somehow listen to them and we validate their feelings, that we affirm what they're wanting to do.
Right.
And that's just wrong, because part of what the anger is and the shutdown is with folks in the LGBTQ community is, you're not even listening to me. You don't even care about me. And so if you do the M and if you do the A, it really helps them feel like you hear me. So I've had a client before who said, that she was abused as a child by a man, and so she wants nothing to do with men. And so that is what's kind of bubbling up the whole idea of same-sex attraction. And so it's like, I can see where that would really upset you and shut you down with men, and so that really helped her feel like, okay, you maybe not agree with me, but you hear me.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. Let's go to the next one. So MAT, M-A-T, okay, the T. And I want to be cautious here, okay, because this is, I would not put this on my list, okay, because of the clients I work with and what we do in our office. But T is touch, right? And so what we're talking about here is you putting that warm touch to your kid. Now, and the reason why I say proceed with caution is, if you never touch your kids, if you're not into hugging and all this, and you do this, your kid's going, what is this about? Okay. So you kind of want to do this touch at a way that would normally be healthy in your house. So also, it is very age dependent.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would add for myself, I would put touch as well as be in their space. Be in their space. And that might just be where you're, instead of confronting them shoulder to shoulder, face to face, you might sit alongside of them, right?
That would be shoulder to shoulder.
Shoulder
to shoulder versus face to face.
I mean squaring up. I
Okay.
mean, rather than squaring up with them, and so this is, guys, like driving in a car. That might be as close as you need to get with them, but they're safe with you. So again, like, touch just means that you're showing a warmth, and it's not a judgment. You're not like casting judgment on them.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But I will say it has been crazy to see people when they're hurting or when they're scared or when you connect with them emotionally, how they will receive, our adult sons, a hug, our young adult sons, our teenage sons, a hug when you've not been with them, but you've connected emotionally with them. I had a client recently that was going through some grief and you could just tell. And so when we got up to leave, I said, "Can I give you a hug?" And she just said, "Yes, please." Like she was so distraught and feeling despair that touch was huge. When you're sitting side by side with a child or, a spouse and they're showing tears, I have seen such amazing connection when a spouse will just reach over and touch their hand or their arm or put their arm around them. Like, I hear you, I see you. And little kids, when they scrape their knee, we did this several times over the weekend. Can I give you a hug? Because they're on our grandson's doing that little balance bike and he's flying down that camp,
He forgot the brakes part.
And he just wiped out,
He used his face for the
Oh
brake.
my gosh. And so, you're like, "Oh, buddy, you're so, and then like, can I give you a hug?" It's like touch sometimes makes it all better.
On that side note, as soon as he came in and he hit hard, guys, like it was like, "Oh my gosh, that's not good." And he had a scrape on his forehead and stuff. And he's crying and everything. And as soon as he got his hug, he kind of got up, he shook it off and jumped right back on that bike. And so the comfort instantly, like, okay, I'm okay. Yeah. Everybody's got me here. Yeah. We're on a team. Go.
Yeah, for sure. So that's the T, touch. And again, gentle comfort or some kind of physical presence. The S is stay. Stay until the emotional need is met. And I'm telling you, hon, this is crazy for me because that was really something that was missing for me, is just this presence, this steady presence that offers security and co-regulation. And so not rushing through emotion, not dismissing your pain or your struggles, just saying like, "I'm here with you," or what can I do to help? Not saying you're going to fix it for them, but it might be just a hug. It might be like, "Hey, thanks for listening," but that's really for them to know, that child to know you're not going anywhere.
In the helper or counselor or parent position, this can be weird and awkward, guys, because this is where oftentimes you're just sitting in silence.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, and I know that drives you crazy.
I know. Silence is hard for me, but I know it's important.
Well, because, you're like, you want to offer a solution. You want to fix it. You want to make it all go away. And sometimes the fixing is an internal emotional settling that has to happen at their pace. And everybody processes differently and at different paces. And so sometimes you're just, "Hey, dude, we'll just hang out together. Okay, we'll just spend some time here together," and with very little expectation on, "Well, if you're not going to bring me something, then I guess I'm done here. We're going to move on." So this is difficult, I would say, more from the comforter side, because the kid, they're just in the middle of this mess. You sitting in the mess with them is where you're needing to be at this time.
Yeah. So, hopefully we've given you this model, MATS, that can help you put this in your pocket for the next meltdown, the next tantrum. Remember, M is mention what you see. Okay, name it for them. And you're just kind of filling in the gap, because if they're not giving you anything, if you ask them how they're feeling or ask them what's going on and they don't give it to you, then you got to do some active listening. You got to read the body language. You got to read the tone, right? You got to read the eye contact. You got to read the posture. And so you're going to mention kind of what you see, and then you're going to ask, right, for questions, just more details, and validate, like, "Wow, I can see that upset you," or "I can see how you would feel that way," right? Or "I can see through your tears that's really hard for you," right?
Yeah. The next one is touch. And so touch is really providing that comfort that says, "I accept you. You're in my space. I'm here to provide comfort." I told you before, like, one thing I've seen with men when I'm done with a kind of a more intensive emotional session with a man, we always pray when we're finished. And so we pray, and oftentimes when we get up, we'll shake hands. and I will put my other hand on their shoulder, like, "Hey,
You're
man,
not alone."
you're not alone. You're,
Yeah.
versus just a cold greeting of a handshake.
Instead of, you want a hug?
Yeah. Well, and again, like, because guys everybody's different, right? And if you're in a culture where you don't hug all the time, hugging them you'd completely lose them.
Right. And you want to always ask, because if they don't want to hug, if they are uncomfortable, then obviously that's going to be worse. Part of our work is that we are going to encourage grace. You don't have to get it perfect to make a difference. And so to be willing to sit in that space with somebody and offer them that touch and that presence, Lord, that's really what God's asking us to do.
Being available is what you're talking about there. And just, you can have a busy schedule going, mom and dad, you got kids going all over here, this, that, and the other, and you're trying to get done what you want to get done. And when you recognize that your kid is in one of these places, you just saying, some of this stuff's just going to have to be put on hold, and letting your kid know that you've got them at a difficult time. I mean, that sends a pretty powerful message to your kid that they're safe with you. Yeah.
Even our young adult daughter, when she comes in, it's so important for me, and I'm not always great at it. I might be working at the computer or on my phone, and to put it all down and to look at her and ask her how her day was, or, and usually she's pretty open to say, I'm exhausted, And so that's when you ask, like, well, what made it exhausting today, right? And I can see how that would make you tired. And so you're just using that mats even with young adults, right? And so take some time as we finish up this session of Rocksolid Families podcast to reflect back on your childhood and to how your parents and other important people in your life showed up and responded to your emotional needs. And growing up, what do you want to do differently or the same? Maybe you would be like, wow, my mom was a great one, like you said at that, sitting around the table. Hun, I will just tell you, this is what I had a moment there. I forget what I was going to say, but I remember when you came into our family's life, how you really changed the dynamic of our home, because one, we didn't hug. We didn't say I loved you. And we didn't sit around the dinner table. We got up, we got the dishes going, and we didn't
we
push
just
back.
were lazy, that's all.
But it was that comforting presence, right, that we just kind of dismissed and pushed aside. And so now our family, when they leave, everybody hugs. And so it's just one of those things of offering that presence and that comfort, knowing that, hey, we're okay.
Here's one of the benefits, hon, as you're talking, I'm thinking, because we have kids now that are from 34 to 17. So we've got quite the age span.
Grandkiddos from 8 to 1.
And so, guys, here's one of the coolest things. When you establish that you can provide comfort, not that you are the maker of all their comfort, but when you establish that you can provide it when it's needed, you will create a lifelong bond. And one of the coolest things is, and again, our older to our boys, or our men, and they don't reach out to you as much because I think your mom, right? But they reach out to me. And whether it's a challenging day or a difficult situation, and just the idea that they know I'm not going to cast judgment, I'm not going to give them advice, I just think that's like one of the coolest opportunities. And you're going to get that with our daughter, right? She's probably not going to come to me anytime soon and go, create comfort for me. But the idea that we help set that stage early, that they go, even though mom and dad, I didn't always like them, I always knew I was safe with them. And so that's kind of the lasting benefit as they get older. Yeah.
So our challenge to you is to remember and memorize MATS and try one of these responses today. When you have a real moment with a child or even a spouse, you can do the same thing with a spouse, but help them, that person, whoever you're sitting with, to feel seen and heard and loved and comforted. So, that's our goal for today.
All right, guys, we want to thank you for listening to Rocksolid Families. We greatly appreciate you listening, sharing our shows. give us those 5-star ratings just to help keep us up on the search engines. We want to thank our sponsors again. We want to thank Maxwell Construction, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and the Hoosier Ice House. Guys, if there's anything that we can do to help you in the parenting situation or with your marriage, your home is called safe place in your kid's mind, right? We want it to be the safe place. We want it to be the place where the rest of the world's crazy. Let's be able to come home and recharge and get ready to go do battle out in the real world. So let's get your home strong and safe so that your kids can be that way as well.
Yeah. And your love and comfort, please remember, is shaping your child's stories in ways you may never fully see, but it does matter. So keep showing up. So thank you so much for listening to the Rocksolid Families podcast, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day.
Wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for sponsoring the Rocksolid Families podcast. Casey's has grown to be one of the largest and most unique garden centers and gift shops in the Cincinnati tri-state area. Whether you are looking to take on that next landscape project or simply add a little home decor to your house, Casey's has you covered. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Call them today at 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home. Rocksolid Families wants to thank Maxwell Construction for sponsoring the Rocksolid Families podcast. For over 30 years, Maxwell Construction has been a leader in turning dreams into realities, building schools, banks, restaurants, and many other commercial and public facilities. Maxwell Construction has made it their priority to not just build buildings, but to build into their community. So if you have any construction needs, call them at 812-537-2200.
Rocksolid Families would like to thank Hoosier Ice House for being a proud sponsor of the Rocksolid Families podcast. In the heart of historic Lawrenceburg, Indiana, the Ice House is at the corner of Vine and High Streets. The historic building evokes a feeling of comfort with spacious indoor and outdoor dining, a large bar, and comfortable dining areas. Large enough to host parties, yet intimate enough to feel like your favorite neighborhood restaurant. So thank you again for the Hoosier Ice House for sponsoring the Rocksolid Families podcast.